Shit 90 Shows Taught Me.
Shit 90 Shows Taught Me was not filmed before a live studio audience.
Are you ready to slay another day? So are we. Welcome back to Shit 90 Shows Taught Me. I'm Jess Sterling here with my co-host, Sarah Humphrey. Sarah, how are you?
Jessica, I am having a great time because even though we are the main characters of this show, there's a whole other thing going on right now, a whole nother podcast that is getting their focus, and they're like our side bitches, but they're having like a main character moment today.
Yeah, I just feel like they're going to try to interrupt us constantly, so we're going to have to tell them to keep it down while we focus on the A plot, you know? It's just constant.
No, B plot only today.
Yeah. We're here with a special guest today. Someone who I feel like personally picked this episode just to sit on the sidelines because he assumed that I was going to rage against the machine, which is Xander. David, how are you?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. And that is, I'd say 85% right. Yes, I did pick this episode for that reason. But also because it is one of my favorite episodes, even though I think it kind of breaks the show. But we'll get into that.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Sarah, from what I know of this episode, I've heard it's very controversial, that some people love it and some people hate it.
Really? Is that usually where people sit on the two spectrums? Because I'm just like, whatever.
You're Mang. I feel like, okay, but that is, I think truly, Sarah, like there are certain things we could put on like your gravestone, right? At a certain point. And I'm pretty sure one of them would just be meh. Because like the apathy that you have is occasionally the I wish I had that apathy. I just can't.
Yeah. I mean, I thought okay, so I thought that the concept that Xander sees himself as a side character in his own life is fascinating. And you and I have actually spoken about this before. I've asked you the question, do you feel like a side character in your own life? And I think like I've thought about this a lot because as you know, like if I was in Inside Out, I would be the blue depression girl. And I oftentimes in my life have felt like the side character to my much cooler and prettier and more fun and intelligent friends. And I've felt like a Xander in those moments that like my life wasn't progressing like other people's were. Like I didn't have a purpose like other people, my peers did. So like I can relate to Xander in this episode a lot. So if I'm going at it in that perspective, I think this is fascinating, this episode.
Okay, interesting. David, you said this is one of your favorite episodes of the show. Is it the style, like the way in which they focus on the B plot rather than the A plot? Is it like, do you love Xander? Like, what's the situation?
Yeah, so I guess, first of all, probably just a little bit of explanation. At the time it came out back in 99, one of my favorite movies was Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead with Tim Roth and Gary Oldman, which is based on a play by Tom Stoppard, which is the side story to Hamlet. I'm a big Shakespeare nerd. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Hamlet's best friends from college, and they come in to spy on him for his uncle. And so the play is about the two of them and what they do while Hamlet is doing the A plot of Hamlet. And then, because at the end of Hamlet, there's a message from England that RNG, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, they've been executed, which is what happens to them. Hamlet, basically figures out they're spying on him and then sets it up so they get killed by the King of England. And it's always been funny. Shakespeare takes time out during the final scene while everybody else in Hamlet is lying there dead to have this messenger come in and say, oh, by the way, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern were executed. So because of that, I had like an affinity for this kind of story, I love the idea of taking a story that is, your standard A plot, for lack of a better term, and then showing us what's happening just off camera, just off to the side. Like, I think that's an interesting thing to explore. And then on top of that, Not so much now, but when the show first aired and I was a 20-something young man watching it, Xander was definitely, the person that I identified with, because I wasn't going to identify with Angel. Well, let's just say I was more like Xander as a kid than I was Angel, put it that way. So yeah, him getting his like flowers and getting his episode where he gets to be the hero, but nobody knows about it, but he still gets the inner journey of doing that and how that affects him, was really good. And then on top of that, this is one of those episodes that I think is like quintessential Buffy because of the dialogue and just like there are so many, like watching this again twice in the last week. There's just so many like lines and just phrases that I can remember that have been like in my head for years. And the delivery from all the actors is just amazing. I mean, they're so good. But they were on the week they made this episode. They were definitely at the top of their game.
Yeah. Yeah, this episode is super interesting. I don't know if we've said season 3, episode 13, the Zeppo. I watched this episode twice. And I've had like a good amount of time between viewings, right? So it's been like a number of days in between my first and second watch. And I will say my very first watch of it, it wasn't like I hated it, but I found the constant switching from like comedy to drama and from A to B very, very jarring. Like we'd go from like a hysterical scene to like boom, smash cut, and everyone's fighting for their lives, and it's like very dramatic. And it really like made my head spin a little bit to the point where I was like, I don't know how I feel about this episode, because it feels like it's a little all over the place. I initially thought this was all going to be in like Xander's head, like he was going to wake up from a dream at the end of the episode or something, because it felt so Xander heavy, and it almost has this dreamlike quality because everyone keeps saying, oh well, we have to protect Xander, like we have to keep him quote unquote out of harm's way. And I felt like people kept saying the same phrases over and over again.
Yeah.
So I really was like, oh, he's just gonna wake up and this is all just gonna have been a dream. So that really colored my very first viewing of it. I did enjoy it more the second time I watched it. I think because I was already like prepped for what was going to happen. And so the jump cuts from scene to scene weren't as jarring the second time around. I do think, Sarah, like Xander has a great episode. There is a moment in this episode, Sarah, that I think is the sole best Xander moment that we have seen on this show. And that's a lot coming from me.
I agree. Which one do you think it is?
So for me personally, it is the moment that he is face to face with Zombie Man O'Toole and the bomb is between them. And he says like, listen, it's all about who has more fear or whatever, right? Like he is in a chicken. He's playing a game of chicken with a zombie and a freaking bomb. And like, he's smiling like he has nothing to lose. And like, I do think this is his best moment because he is both like fearless, it's a little reckless, right? It's a little silly, and the fact that he didn't brag about it after the fact, David, I had so much more respect for this character after that, because we know Xander wanted to brag,
Yeah. And speaking, that's also what I think is his best moment, and quite possibly might be his best moment in the entire series. We can get back together on that after you guys finish season 7. But yeah, the fact that he doesn't brag, like just the quiet confidence he has afterwards, as compared to how he is the whole, how he has been the whole series, is definitely like, just really nice to see and an excellent way to bring the character forward. Yeah, I can't see anything else.
The wheels were turning right there.
Yeah. The dream thing, do you think that your impression of it as possibly a dream was highlighted by the opening sequence and how the camera came in with all the smoke and everything and kind of like showed each of them, because the cold open on this episode has always been very distinctive to me as being very kind of dreamlike, kind of drops right in the middle of the action.
Maybe a little bit because we are coming in like what normally might be an end of an episode where we're like, oh, and who are these guys and what are they doing here and what's their deal? Maybe, but honestly, Sarah, the reason I thought it was a dream was because like so many things were happening for Xander and like we were focusing on him so much. And I was like, there's no way he just had sex with Faith. You gotta be kidding me.
So the funny thing is that so sometimes you and I with a couple of our friends talk about the episode in like a Discord chat. And I think that you had said like, okay, and then you put it in block text.
Yeah, so, spoiler, just so in case you haven't watched the episode yet.
But I always click because I'm terrible. And I think like I saw something like you say dream episode. So I watched the entire episode because you said it. Yeah, because exactly, because I had like read that spoiler text, so I was watching the whole thing like, oh, like this is a dream episode, so I need to stop clicking on the spoiler text, which everyone has been telling me to stop doing.
I'm gonna do fake spoilers from now on, just so that you're really thrown off when you watch.
Okay, I would fully believe it, but I think that it's interesting because like David is the cold opens that are like shot out of a cannon, like it's like a Buffy signature, I would assume a little bit. Like when we jump into the action like that, I do get a little thrown off.
Yeah, he Joss does that a lot on his shows. There's some structural things that you pick up on if you watch things that he does. And yeah, he likes to, it's a standard thing. It's not just him, you jump in the middle of the action, it immediately gets the viewer invested. They're wondering what's going on. Theoretically, that makes them want to watch more. So
no, it does the opposite for me. If I come in and we're like kicky, punchy, then I'm like, okay, I guess I'm ready for my Buffy nap now. So I get like a little, I don't know. I need us to be slowly walking on the near the lockers in Sunnydale High. That's how you get me invested in an episode.
Yeah, you're like, what's the latest tea? What's the latest drama?
Drama today, please.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, it makes sense though that they did start the episode this way because we see Xander is like beat to hell, right? Like he's the only one who like nearly dies. And they're like, well, we need to demote him a little bit. Yeah. Like he can't be in the fray so much because he doesn't have special powers, as Cordelia so kindly points out later on in the episode. Like,
yeah, he's got to be fray adjacent.
Yeah, we have Willow, who's a witch now, Buffy, obviously the Slayer, Giles, former Watcher, more on that later. And Oz can turn into a werewolf, a couple days a month. So he's never really. He is very Scooby adjacent to, at a certain point, Oz is. So we got to watch out for Xander. We don't want him to die, so maybe we don't include him in things as much.
So let me ask you this. During this episode, was there ever a point when you guys thought that Xander might actually be killed and turned into a zombie?
No.
Okay, so going back to the idea that everybody's got a superpower, I will tell y'all that the first time I watched this, when it aired live, when he was like running from the guys about moving through the episode and like, ducking into the coffee, place and then got in his car and got away from him, I legitimately thought that they might kill him because it's Buffy and they do stuff like that. They killed Angel, they killed Jenny Calendar. And like Cordelia said, and the central theme of the episode is that he's useless because he doesn't have powers. So, but
I always thought he was going to be the character like, forgive me for bringing up this property, but like a Ron Weasley type where it's like, there's really nothing special about the guy, but he's included in like this epic group because he's the Xander, right? He's the Zeppo, which.
And about that, Zeppo, Zeppo Marx, was the normal one of the Zeppos brothers. Groucho, Chico, and Harpo were all hilarious, and Zeppo played the straight man and the ridiculous romantic lead because he was the handsome one. I did finger quotes, but you guys can't see that because this is a podcast. But handsome was finger. Anyway.
Well, also, how is Cordelia? I didn't know this reference, and I can't imagine a '90s version of Cordelia Cordelia's doesn't didn't know the Marx Brothers.
I could see Cordelia now. They live in California, probably not too far away from Hollywood. I can see Cordelia having like a period in her life with a fascination with old Hollywood. And maybe she did, like, maybe she went to the Chinese theater. Maybe she like saw like all the stars and the handprints. Maybe she does. Maybe there
Can I
is
tell
a
you
world.
what I think is a more reasonable explanation?
What's
I
that?
think she was like, what's a great way to insult Xander? And then she couldn't Google because like there was really a ton of Googling at the time.
Ask
Maybe she asked
Jeeves.
Jeeves.
Net crawler.
Maybe she just like asked Jeeves, like, what is the loser in the group called? And she found Zeppo Marx. But yeah, that's the whole premise of this episode is Xander is kind of a nothing burger. Like he doesn't really contribute a ton to the group in terms of Willow's a witch and also does research. Buffy has cool powers. Like he's kind of a nothing burger. And that is what Cordelia says to him. And we meet this new character, Mr. Bully O'Toole, who very dangerous man. I wouldn't want to mess with him. But Xander is like, struggling a little bit, and they're not including him in the A plot. So he goes off on his own little adventure, and like unhinged things are happening, which is why I really thought this was a dream, because truly, like, we have zombies. There's so many things going on. And like my first question with this entire thing is like, okay, Xander needs to find his thing, right? That's like his whole thing. Oh, I need to be cool. Oz is cool because, first of all, Oz is cool because he doesn't care, Xander. Yeah. That's why Oz is cool. Not because he's in a band, not because he has like short sentences. No, he's cool because he doesn't care. And you're uncool because you care. And Xander needs to find a thing. And David, his solution is, I'm going to be the car guy. I'm going to be the guy with the old classic car.
Yeah, that he rents from Uncle Rory.
This is not, I don't think this should be his thing, Sarah. Like, can we pitch maybe a different thing for Xander? Like, what should Xander's thing be?
Well, I'm very confused because I have never thought that Xander was not holding his weight when it came to battling.
I definitely have felt that way.
Really? Because I feel as though, especially ever since he had that like Halloween episode, and now he has all this like military knowledge and whatever. Like I didn't ever see him as somebody that just bought the donuts. So I feel as though in terms of like what his powers are or like what makes him irreplaceable. I mean, he definitely has like a knowledge of weapons or something. I think that he has a good strategic mind for battling.
I don't know. I think Miles supersedes him in weapons knowledge any day of the week. He has an entire like armoire of weapons.
Yeah, but it's not about like who. I mean, I guess if everybody had to have one power, sure. But I never in my mind thought that he was holding anyone back. Like, especially when there's like, I mean, I think that in the same way, like Cordelia doesn't have a superpower, but we've talked about how like she has like charisma and she's able to like talk to people and like manipulate situations. But like, I think that there's situations that we've seen Xander maybe not as flawlessly, but like also have that like charismatic ability to like put on a disguise and get himself into like situations. I don't know. Like, and we've seen him like fight not as strongly as Buffy, but I don't know. Like, I think that I just never thought of him as that way. But I think like what's most important is how he sees himself, and he sees himself as a loser who can't do anything and is the weakest of the bunch. And in this situation, his friends are treating him that way too.
I don't know. He is a virgin who can't drive.
He's not a virgin.
He was.
Not anymore. Not anymore. But okay. Of all of the things in this episode that, again, made me think it was a dream and also felt absolutely unbelievable to me, it wasn't the zombies. It wasn't the blue vampires. None of that. Absolutely none of that. It was the fact that this show had the audacity to tell me that, one, Xander is a virgin. Him and Cordelia dated for a good long while. There's no way they didn't have sex. They were like full on doing bases in closets, and you're telling me that they didn't have sex at some point? I don't believe it. And secondly, David, that of all people he'd lose his virginity to, Faith too? First Willow and Court. Why are all these women jumping into bed with Xander? What is happening?
I think that Faith is kind of a special case in that it's not necessarily about Xander so much as he was a convenient, I don't even want to say partner because that makes him too much of an equal.
He's a piece of meat. He's a dick. He's something that she's like, I have adrenaline. Gotta get it out somehow.
And she said that, like, when we first met her, she said, like, whenever she fights and kills, like, she gets horny. So
yeah, she said she was ready to pop.
Yeah, fight like that and no kill.
I don't think people should say ready to pop when they're talking about like having sex because it sounds like pimply to me and nothing could like further. Like, it's gross.
Faith likes that image. I'll just put it that way.
She would love like Dr. Pimple Popper. That feels like right up Faith's alley. Like, she would love watching pimple popping videos.
I like it.
Do you? It grosses me out. I can't.
No, I like it. I mean, I don't like it when it's bloody, but yeah.
God, that's so nasty. So yeah, that I thought was absolutely insane. Because Sarah, like, do you believe this that Zordy never had sex? That doesn't track for me at all.
I mean, I am surprised. And I also think that you and I have talked about it before, and I think our assumption was that he was not a virgin before that either. But I guess I mean,
he must have been the final, or no, wait, Willow is the final virgin of the group then, because we know Oz has had sex.
Of the three of them, yes, she is.
Yeah, I think that Cordelia is probably like, you know, you have to work really, really, really hard to.
Do we have confirmation if Cordelia is a virgin or not? I don't think she is, right?
Best of my knowledge, she is not. But
exactly.
I can't say more.
You're telling me that Cordelia, not a virgin, is gonna date Xander for like at least 8-9 months and doesn't have sex with him? Why are you dating him? It just doesn't make sense.
You're also like 17.
That doesn't matter.
I mean,
once you've had sex, I feel like there's a thing, like, right? And this is just my experience, my opinion, whatever. When you're a teenager, you're a virgin, right? You're a virgin. You haven't had sex. Once you have sex, then it's like, well, the cherry is popped. Like, who cares?
I don't really think that's necessarily true. I think that, like, especially if your first experience isn't great, then I think that there's like definitely people that like go off to college and don't have sex again because like the first time wasn't what they thought it was going to be. So I can see a reality for that. I mean, I think that for adults, that's very, very true. But I just like, we have to remember that they're supposed to be like teenagers. And
it was just the biggest shock of the episode for me. Like, truly it was.
Here's the thing. It wasn't surprising to me watching it the first time because I felt like the show would have told us if Cordy and Xander had sex, then the show would have told us. Because I can't imagine Xander would have had sex with Cordy and not told the world. Because
but they were so hot and heavy, which is why I assumed they had.
Remember when we did in Dawson's Creek, we had our fantasy league.
The fantasy draft, yeah.
Yes. One of the rules of it was we would not get points for sex unless we saw evidence as
a confirmed coitus. Yeah.
Like in the bed, clothes off, like
but here's the thing is like, I think I'm believing the show Felicity for this because it threw me off so much when like suddenly we come back and Felicity has had sex and I'm just like, what? When did this happen?
Yeah,
so like
Felicity is crazy. We confirmed, absolutely confirmed. So
yeah,
we also know, like Felicity is like always acts before she really thinks. So she is like a character that like, you know, 1 second we're at 0, next we're at 100. But also, if you watch the next episode of Felicity, people be having sex when you don't think that they're having sex. So
yeah, either way, that was like a thing that like blew my mind about this episode. But let's go back a little bit in time. We basically only have 2 storylines to discuss because it's Xander's storyline and then it's the plot A that is actually plot B this episode. And so let's stick with Xander. And I did love one of my favorite things about this episode, David, is the blonde woman whose name I don't know, who like really likes Xander's car. And he gets so bored of her instantly because literally all she wants to talk about is the car.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's just like, I don't know. It's like when guys like take their puppy around and they're like, this is going to get me girls. And then the girls like are only interested in the puppy. It's like it's you.
Me are girls. Yes, that is me.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, no, I'm not trying to hit on you. I just want to pet the puppy. Like, please. No. And she's like, I don't want to hang out with you. I just want to be in your car.
To the point where Xander has a knife to his throat and she's like, I'm bored.
Yeah. I mean, she was kind of a flake. Once again, you know, very dreamlike cartoon caricature-ish.
Yeah. And then she screams and runs off when Bob pops out of the ground, you know, and then she's gone.
And then she never comes and he's like, okay, bye. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wild. Like, especially, and again, I'm going to come down a little bit on Xander because I'm me. Hey, we have Bully O'Toole man, right? He has the biggest knife I've seen a person just carry on their person. He just a full-on like dagger, just whips it out, is threatening Xander with it, has it like by his neck, what's its name? Katie or something ridiculous? Yeah, yes, Katie the knife.
Katie.
And
very serial killer thing to do. Name your short sword.
That is serial killer behavior. And the cop comes up and he's like, oh, O'Toole, I'm familiar with you. Is this guy bothering you? Xander doesn't say yes, which like, okay, sure, maybe he's not going to be a narc. Maybe he's not going to rat the guy out. But then why hang out with him after? You could have said no. You really could have said no.
He couldn't. What are you talking about? He would have been pulverized.
Then he should have told the cop.
No, he's not going to do that because snitches get stitches.
Snitches get stabbed.
No, I mean, I think that like, especially because his friends literally ditched him and are telling him, not telling him about like literally the world ending any second. I think that he's like, wait a minute, like I need a new in, and this guy is my new in. Even though he's bullied me since I was in kindergarten, I'm going to go hang out with him. And they do. They have a great time just being bros until they go to the graveyard, because that's what all these people do.
That's where they hang.
Yeah. And then then he realizes that he's in a zombie gang. And they try to indoctrinate him into the zombie gang. They want to initiate him. And once again, very pro Greek life. If you want to be in Alpha Gamma zombie, then please, by all means, join in.
Now, I don't know, David, maybe you can explain the lore a little bit better to me here, because we know O'Toole is also like a zombie, but he is raising his friends from the dead. It has something to do with the full moon, because again, simultaneously off screen or in another, section of town, Oz is becoming werewolf Oz. So we know it has something to do with the full moon, but like, why was O'Toole still awake then?
When he pulled his shirt up and showed Xander the bullet holes, he said that he got hit in a drive-by the week before, and his grandfather raised him. He wasn't gone like 5 minutes, which is why he still looks alive.
Okay.
And yeah, but he had to wait for his buddies until the stars all aligned. And it's one of the few like quibbles with the writing is were the stars aligned last week when Grandpappy raised him?
That's what I was wondering, because I'm like, I thought it had to do with the full moon.
Yeah.
Like, why was he able to just come back so quick?
Yeah, no, it's just it's like a celestial thing, which the moon's part of.
Yada yada it.
Okay.
Ooh,
yeah, like the line is literally had to wait for the stars to align, because Bob's asking him. That's when Bob asked him if he taped Walker, Texas Ranger.
Oh, Bob is the guy who is he's from like Walking Dead, right? Isn't he like Abraham?
Walking Dead. Yeah, Abraham. Yes, exactly. Michael Cudlitz.
Yeah,
is the actor's name.
This did crack me up, Sarah. Like, okay, we can poke fun at the Oz werewolf costume, and we will, because it is horrible. I really liked, like, because we've talked about how campy Buffy is.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was so fun. Like the idea of a zombie crew that's very like bro-y, like very frat, and they're like, let's go make a cake, let's go rob a bank, let's go. Like, it was very fun.
They're just there for the funsies, and honestly, I mean, there's worse things that they could be doing, and if they want to go rob a bank, then by all means go ahead.
Yeah, they're gonna go rob a hardware store, and they're gonna make Xander into their like driver.
Yeah, he's the driver guy.
That's his thing now.
The wheelman.
The wheelman.
Wheelman. Yeah.
And so this is where he runs into Giles while Giles is busy summoning spirits and stuff. And he's like, he doesn't ask for help. This is my one thing where I'm like, Xander, my guy, like, there's capable people because you're around them most of the time. And you don't think to mention to Giles, especially when he's like, oh, it smells like death here. Don't you think maybe the librarian who's constantly reading about mythical creatures would know a little something about zombies?
You think that he has time for that? Giles is literally trying to save the world. Like, don't you understand? The Hellmouth is opening, Jessica. We're on
a Hellmouth.
Yeah, but it's opening. Like, we don't have time to deal with zombies.
But Xander doesn't know that.
But he knows that something very bad is happening because they're not letting him help, And one of the things that I would go back to, and it's funny now that I think about it, because if I was going to say what was Xander's best episode before this, it would be the season 1 finale, which is the last time the Hellmouth opened and that thing came out. So, but they do try to like parallel those two events very much to kind of give you an idea of the scale of what Buffy and them are dealing with and why they're pushing Xander to the side. Which is ironic since the last time the Hellmouth opened, he's literally the one who saved the day because he saved Buffy. Oh well.
Yeah. But yeah, he doesn't say anything to Giles. He's like, okay, we're just gonna go back to zombie time. And it's during the robbing of the hardware store that he runs into Willow, who is very much like acting like the world is about to end. We get a lot of smash cuts of it's the end of the world. It's the end of the world. Like 4 times this episode.
Yeah.
And again, he doesn't mention anything to her. She just hugs him. And it was pretty comical. Like, they're all taking this like so seriously. And it's like, I love you, Xander. Okay, bye. And then she like leaves and he again says nothing. I would have at least been like, screw the car. Who cares about Rory's car? I'm going with Willow. I'm not going to be here when these zombies rob this hardware store. I'm out. It's just me, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you don't have a passion or a strive to be cool. Like, did you ever, even in your childhood days, care about being cool?
I would say I think I cared more about being uncool than being cool. Like, I don't think my goal was ever to be cool because I was like, that's just not attainable. Like, that's just not for me. So I think realistically, I'm like, as long as I'm not the loser, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So I just don't think that you can relate to the feeling and like when his goal is literally like, I want to be popular. I want people to like me. I want to be cool. So I just don't think that you can relate to Xander.
I've never related to Xander. I can tell you that much. I just need to know, David, like, if you were going to give Xander the thing that makes him cool, what can he do? Like, besides not caring and then becoming cool, like, what could his thing be?
Well, that's kind of tricky for me to answer because they're going to specifically address that at some point in the near future, more or less, as far as like what his role is and why he's important to the group. It's a theme that they keep coming back to over the course of the show. What I will say is this. Like I said, his best showing before this was in the season 1 finale. And the thing that he did in that episode that he demonstrated was his faith in Buffy, his belief in her, and how he has that on a level that nobody else does. Now, maybe that's because he's, quote unquote, in love with her.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just because he recognizes that she is, better and amazing, and those things are unfortunately intertangled a little bit. So it's hard to kind of, give him credit for it. But that's kind of what I would say is like his superpower is. And it's not really just Buffy. He has the same kind of faith in Willow. Like he believes in her. He believes that she is capable of being the best version of herself. And I think that, and without spoiling the rest of the show, I think that you'll see that's his superpower going forward. But it has been his superpower all along.
I think if we're going to go for like stuff we see in the episode, I think his thing should be, I'm not afraid to die. Like, I'm not afraid. I think having no fear should be his thing. I think in school, maybe his thing could be like, I always have a lighter on me if anyone needs a light. Like, I have a Zeppo and I like fiddle with it sometimes. Like, I think there's a thing he could maybe do that makes him slightly cooler than who he is now. But Sarah, like, I feel like the obvious answer is like, you hang around. I guess Buffy isn't cool, but she's more cool than Xander is. So I feel like he could at least hang around with the Scoobies.
I think we lean into the fact that he's like class clown. Like, nobody hates class clown. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like usually it's like, oh, we love when the class clown like messes with the teacher. This is funny.
Yeah. I think there is like, I think that he needs to just be like the people person guy. Like, he just needs people come to him for, to make them feel better. He goes to other people to make them smile. Like, he needs to lean into the class clown. We all need the class clown.
I also just thought of another thing. I know that Cordy dating him made her uncool.
Yeah.
But I feel like he could hang his hat on like, I dated a cool girl. Like, that should give him some sort of cool points.
Well,
just like a little bit of a cool point.
I think it kind of did, but I think that in reality, it just like made Cordy less cool. But now I think that like, cool to who? To freaking Harmony? Harmony is a freaking bitch and a half. Like, I don't want.
She's the cool girl. She's the cool girl.
She's a witch. Not really. That's Amy.
No, that's Amy. Yeah,
that's Amy. Yeah, that's rat Amy.
I wouldn't want to be cool to Harmony.
No,
I would just rather not care what she thinks ever about anything till the end of time.
Awful.
Yeah, Harmony's gonna lose her power eventually. She's going to get hit by a bus. And then she's not going to win homecoming queen. Sad for her.
Okay. So Xander, they want to indoctrinate Xander into their death club. But he's like, no, I'm okay. Like, I'm good. I don't want to die. And he does it. He gets out of there. He takes the car. He gets out of there. And this is when he bumps into Faith, who's busy fighting a blue vampire. And for some reason, Faith is fighting this blue vampire all by herself. No Scoobies to be found. Maybe they're busy dealing with the end of the world. And he is like, and I really thought he was going to end up killing the vamp. Like, he hits it with his car. And I thought there was going to be like a stick on the front of the car or something. And that was
so funny.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, it's one of the demons. It's from the Sisterhood. The bad guys, the ones who
cult, right? The apocalypse cult.
Yeah, and they're not vampires, they're just demons, but they do eat people. That's how they celebrate victory, is they consume their enemies.
That's one way to do it.
The Sisterhood of Jai. If you're into that kind of thing. I try not to judge.
I did love the moment. So he kind of rescues her a little bit, right? They go back to her apartment and she's dislocated her shoulder. And so she says to him, hold me. And he comes over almost like about to give her a hug because he doesn't know what she means. And then it's so badass there. She relocates her own shoulder.
That was sick. Okay, so you know how I said that I like Dr. Pimple Popper? I really, really, really like watching chiropractic cracks. That's actually, I kind of like that more than pimple popping. I love the cracks. So I like
crack. Mm-hmm.
No, I don't like, no.
No notes.
No. Yeah. It's
Faith
very
incredible.
Like, subdivision of person that likes it, but it's me. Hi. Yeah, so she fixes herself. And then, like we mentioned earlier, because she fought so hard, she wanted him and he was there and he said yes.
Yeah, it really, I will say, it really grossed me out when she says, are you up for it or something like that? And he goes, oh, I'm up. I'm suddenly very up. And I'm like, that's disgusting. I don't want to hear about that. That is nasty.
It's boy humor.
And I did love.
Yeah, it is boy humor.
Yeah. They have sex.
And then she says, relax and take off your pants. And he says that's antithetical.
Yeah.
I'm shocked he can think of the word antithetical in that moment, honestly.
No. And they have
on
sex.
His word of the day calendar. He's like, yes, I got the score. I did it.
She immediately kicks him out after. And this cracked me up. She's like, I have to take a shower. See ya. And I was like, this feels like a Faith thing to do. I'm on board with this. Yes.
Yeah. And he's standing outside the door with like half his clothes still in his hands because he's not even dressed yet. And the music just like snaps off. The music in that scene. Okay, so first of all, the music in this entire episode is amazing. Like, just like the way that it starts and stops based on what kind of mood we're supposed to have. Mm-hmm. But like when she says to him, "Are you up for it?" The music like shifts into this like pseudo porn music.
Yeah, I remember that.
With this like bass to it, and then it plays all the way through the scene, and like comes up louder when the camera pans to the TV, so we get the reflection from the TV. You can tell I've seen this like 9 million times. But then with all like the Buffy and Angel scenes, the music, that's where it really like wins a medal. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of, Xander gets back to his car. He realizes that the supplies that the guys stole is like used to make bombs. And he's like, I'm going to go see Buffy. Buffy will know what to do. She's super smart. And he walks in on Buffy and Angel having like the most intense conversation, Sarah. Like this was the schmoopiest of all schmoopy scenes of like, I don't want you to die. Ah.
This was my favorite. Yes, I thought it was so funny because like how many times have we seen a Buffy scene like this and an Angel scene and it's just like, oh, not this again.
Oh, see, I thought you meant it was like your favorite scene because you were like, oh, I was so invested. But you liked it because the same reason I did, where how over the top and ridiculous.
Yes, yeah. Was. And I really liked that he walked into it in the middle of it and then he was like, oh, sorry for interrupting. And I think this is my favorite scene of the episode because it really just like takes us out of like how dramatic Buffy and Angel is. And it's like, because this whole time, I think like the reason why you and I aren't liking Buffy and Angel is because how seriously they take themselves. But this kind of just like spins it on its head a little bit. And it's like, oh, the show knows it's very, very schmoopy. The show knows it's too much. Yeah. And then that softens it a little bit for me because if the show is not taking it seriously, then I don't have to take it seriously.
Yeah. And that's part of what I'm talking about when I say that I think this episode kind of breaks the show a little bit. Because it does that, it peels back the curtain. It's like revealing the magic trick. Your suspension of disbelief and your buy-in on like Angel and Buffy's relationship is, from a certain perspective, taken away because now you see how ridiculous it is. Like you don't see how over the top melodramatic ridiculous it is when everybody's taking it seriously and the show is treating it like it's serious. But when you have Xander walk in and then the music stops and the two of them just stare at him blankly while he tries to like talk to them and just basically look at him until he leaves and then they look at each other and the music starts back up immediately, it's just like it's like the Emperor's New Clothes. You can't not unsee it after it's happened.
Yeah, that's true. I think from here on out, maybe people who like really did love Bangel, I don't know, maybe now they're like, wow, I do notice how like schmoopy and OTT it is. It's just like it's a lot. And so yeah, he leaves. He's like, okay, well, they're busy. All right, well, maybe Giles. Giles is maybe the one. And actually, okay, my second, see, here's the thing. I did come up. I'm not gonna love Xander from here on out. I'm level setting people's expectations right now. There were a few moments in this episode where I was like, this is incredible. I'm so happy he's doing this. I expect that he probably will go back to being normal Xander after this episode, but I loved when he sees the zombies like running, right? And he grabs one, he drives with it dangling off the car, and he's like interrogating it as he drives. Like, I'm just gonna say, Sarah, as someone who, when they drive, if I even ever so slightly look to my left or right while I'm driving, I tend to like slightly veer in that direction. It is not easy to like, there's no way it's easy to hold on to another person as you're driving and interrogate them all at the same time.
Talent, absolute talent, right?
I mean, I was impressed. I'm not gonna lie. It was impressive.
Yeah.
I loved this scene, especially when the guy's head hits the mailbox, David. It was incredible. It was so funny.
You're loving the slapstick.
Yeah,
today.
and it's also, because he's trying to have the tough guy line. He's like the reason he doesn't get the answer he wants is because he's saying to him, threatening him, and then the head gets knocked off. Yeah, no, it's hilarious.
It's really good, and he does get information out of them that they're setting up a bomb in the school. Okay, maybe this is a dumb question. Did we get an explanation on why they're trying to bomb the school?
Because they're criminals, and now they're all dead, and they're mad because the school sucks. No,
so it's really like high school shenanigans of like, this is our prank, but also it's devastating.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And I guess theoretically nobody's in the school when it blows up because they don't know that Buffy and company are in the library saving the world.
Right. Yeah, and this is where I think the episode shines, Sarah, is like when we're merging the two stories in the same location while also simultaneously still kind of cutting back and forth. So we have Xander trying to take down the zombies. Can I ask you, Sarah, why he has a giant axe in his hands?
Mm-hmm.
And he chooses to use the axe to knock a vending machine over on top of the zombie instead of, just using the axe to split the guy's head open.
Okay, I don't know much about zombies, but if you like chop their arm off, they still can like bop around, right?
But couldn't he axe the guy's head?
I mean, that's like pretty. I mean, I don't know much about zombies. Like, is the only way to kill a zombie is to chop their head off?
Well, you want to do severe trauma to the brain in some fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that the reason you don't try to cut their head off and you instead drop a vending machine on them is because the vending machine's not going to miss. It's going to smash their head. Their brain's gone. Whereas if you go for the head chopping, what if Bob catches the axe?
Yeah.
What if Bob moves?
Yeah.
Okay.
What if you roll really badly on your attack roll and you miss cutting off the head and then you never get never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Exactly.
I do like that, like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. But I like that Xander, like, the way in which these zombies all die isn't always because of Xander, right? Like, the one gets ripped apart by those blue demon people. Like, right? They're all kind of running through the school. He almost comes face to face with the monster that the plot A people are fighting. Yeah. And then he does the game of chicken with O'Toole. And again, I truly think this is Xander's best moment. I think like even the facial expressions I thought were really fun. Like he's like, who's going to flinch? And he's like smiling again, because I think that is his like superpower in terms of the Scoobies is not that he has nothing to lose, because that feels really cruel for me to say. More so like that he feels like this is the worst, terrible things have happened to me. I've lost a little bit of that like shock value. Like, I could die here, but I don't think you're going to let us both die. So I'm willing to bet my life on it. That's something that I think, David, that like most people don't have. And so if Xander possesses that ability to call someone's bluff, that's huge. And most people, including people like Willow and Buffy and Giles, I don't think have that.
Yeah. What it reminds me of is samurai are trained to go into action with the certainty of their own death at the forefront of their mind. And because of that, they're free to act because they're not afraid of dying. And that's the kind of like Zen state of mind Xander is in that final moment when he's confronting O'Toole. I think that's like amazing acting from Nicholas Brendon. Like, it's one thing to act like a goofball all the time. It's another thing to demonstrate that you're a goofball constantly and then have a scene that calls on you to be just like the coolest person in the show for 5 minutes. And not be afraid when you're going to get blown up. And yeah, he sells it. Like the way he says, "I like the quiet" at the very end of that, when he's like, it's not running around with your buddies dead. It's getting scooped up by the janitor dead. And I don't think you're ready for that. And O'Toole's like, "Are you?" And he just like pauses for a minute and then goes, "I like the quiet." It's so awesome. Like, yeah, he's never that cool again. I'll just say that right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I do think this is like his best moment. And then the I don't know, stinger, whatever it's called at the end of the scene, Sarah, where he's like, "I don't want to see you at this school anymore," whatever. He walks out and the guy's like, "Hey, whatever, I'm going to be right back." Opens the door only for Oz to come in and eat him.
Yep. Bye. Yeah.
It was so funny. I loved that.
It was
moment
very
so
good,
much, especially because we hadn't seen Oz in a while, right? So like I wasn't expecting it.
I was like, "What is Oz doing? Just eating people, casual zombies." Actually, yeah. I thought that also the end, talking about like not bragging, like he really just like let his time be his, and even like I think once again, like when he was not fighting back with Cordelia or like bantering back. Like, that's the power to stop the people picking on you, is just the indifference, right? It's hard to get there, but and like kind of just like laughing at the fact that like she's exerting this energy, and Cordelia's gonna get bored of that. She likes having the tit for tat. That was always their relationship. So I think that this is going to probably change their dynamic going forward as well.
Well, and it also, I mean, Cordelia has a pattern of she's attracted to confidence. Like if you go back to the very first episode, the thing that made Jesse attractive to her, their friend Jesse, who got turned into a vampire in the first episode, when he showed up as a vampire and was like, trying to hit on her, he acted indifferent about her. Like, it was very much the same kind of like, I'm kind of ignoring you, but I'm also doing it in a way where you know that I'm doing it. Kind of thing. And that's what she likes, because she's used to just kind of being Cordelia, and everybody pays attention to me. So it's the person who doesn't care what she's doing that's going to get her attention. And I'm not saying that they're going to get back together, they're not going to get back together. Y'all speculate on that all you want, but it definitely, like Sarah said, the dynamic between them shifts in that scene. And it shifts because the power, unfortunately, some might say, moves away from Cordelia and back a little bit towards Xander.
But I did like that she got her digs in earlier in the episode, and when she's walking away, she's like, "Oh, that felt good." I just felt like she earned that a little bit after what he did to her. Like she earned the right to like call him out in like a very specific, hurtful way. So I did enjoy that. I am looking forward to the day where like Cordy is actually back in the Scoobies, right? Like, because she's really not, she has these scenes with Xander, but she's not involved in the A storyline whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So I can't wait for her to actually be back in the group. That's the biggest thing that the cheating storyline took away from me that I hold against it, is the fact that Cordelia isn't hanging out with the Scoobies as much. It like makes me very sad.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the A storyline that we really didn't see a ton of, which includes an apocalypse cult that wants to end the world. We have Giles talking about no longer being a watcher, which I guess the only real result of that, or like effect of that, Sarah, is that he's not getting intel from like the Watchers Council.
I gotta be honest with you. I really thought the stakes would be higher. Like I thought that like he wasn't allowed to hang out with Buffy, and of course he's probably not allowed to hang out with Buffy. But he still has like a lot of access to her because he's still the school librarian. Yeah, I thought that they would have like removed him and like transferred him back to Watcher base. And I thought we would have seen Buffy's new Watcher by now. So I think that we'll feel that more once Buffy's new Watcher comes around. And like, then, you know, he's no longer the person that she's like can or should turn to. But yeah, it felt like he was just still the Watcher.
So, go back to like the very beginning of the episode, that first scene, because he's there when they're fighting, and he's not in his like, Watcher costume, like he's not in his tweed suit. And to me, like him being like, kind of in the trenches with them in a way he normally wasn't when he was the official Watcher. And then immediately mentioning, reminding the audience that he's not a Watcher anymore. That always seemed like to me, the show's way of kind of like waving it in front of us and reminding us that it happened. But then letting that storyline fall to the background for this episode, because it's, other than him not having his information sources, not going to really progress this week.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I guess because we've seen him in the trenches. Like it doesn't happen all the time, but we have seen it. So I guess that's why I didn't really notice a big difference. I think one of my favorite, though, like smaller moments from the Buffy crew side of things was the jelly donut.
Yes.
The fact that Giles is like, I'm the one who requests jelly, and you've both eaten all the jelly donuts. And I think it was like, Sarah, I think Buffy was the one who ate 3.
Yeah, and Willow went to the bus.
I mean, okay, I love a donut. I don't think that I would be going after the jellies. Like jelly donuts are reserved for Hanukkah, and that's about it.
Oh, is that a Hanukkah thing? Jelly donuts?
Yeah, it is actually.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't go towards. I mean, I love donuts though.
Me too, but I would never be picking a jelly donut.
No, but
what are you going for, Sarah? If you're picking out of like an assortment of donuts,
I like Boston cream. I really like that. Ew, Jessica, don't make that face at me.
I know this is like a spicy take. I really hate Boston cream donuts. I really don't like the stuff that's on the inside of them.
I like the stuff that's in the inside. I like that. Over here we have like old-fashioned sour cream donuts that are really, really good. I like those. I like apple cider donuts.
I love an apple cider.
I like donuts.
Yeah. David, what about you? What's your donut order?
I really like the chocolate glazed at Dunkin', the little munchkins. Everybody loves those.
Mm-hmm.
My donut obsession is apple cider donuts because they're very hard to find in South Texas.
Poor you.
I can imagine that would be difficult.
I eat them whenever I find them. I buy like multiple, like a lot.
Come to Indianapolis. There's plenty.
Yes.
Or New York, the home of the apple cider donut.
I have.
I don't think that New York owns apple cider donuts.
They definitely do.
I have been told the best ones are in New York, though.
Yeah.
So, no, I've had New York donuts and I've had them here. They are as good.
I think if there's like an assortment of donuts, I think my first inclination is if there's a double chocolate, aka chocolate glaze with chocolate frosting, that's probably the one I'm going to go for. But I really do love like a blueberry muffin moment or blueberry donut moment. Very good. Stop making that face, Sarah. I'm generally not a fan of ones that are stuffed with other things. So Giles would have the jelly donuts all to himself.
Him liking jellies might be like a European thing, because when I was a kid and we were in Germany, I remember getting them more often there.
Oh, they have those like jam cookies, right? Like Jammy Dodgers or whatever they're called. So maybe that's right.
I'm sure they do.
And so I did love that scene. They have to trank Oz at one point, which also was pretty funny, especially when Willow like pets him after and she's like, "I'm so sorry. Hope he's not mad in the morning." It's ridiculous. And then we see this like massive tentacled monster that they fight. Like, I don't know what this thing was supposed to be, but it had like tentacles. I don't know if there were eyes on the end of it or mouths on the end of it. It was nasty looking.
I don't partake in it.
Yeah, it's your standard like,
David. Like,
yeah, it showed up in Prophecy Girl, the season 1 finale.
I was just gonna say, because they talked about that being the first thing that would come out of the Hellmouth.
The tentacles, that's the tentacles that pop out, but you don't see it. And then later at the end of the episode, when they're sitting around the table talking about what happened, they say, "We saw its true face. I'll never forget how horrible it was." We don't actually see its true face because we don't have the budget for that. But,
yeah, that was funny. The little like breakdown of everything the next morning where like Buffy's in a sling, like everyone has like bruises.
I have a question. Is Buffy having kind of like an ugh moment recently?
Because of her hair, you mean?
Yeah, I have a note about that to ask y'all what y'all thought about her hair in this episode.
Her hair in the first scene I loved. It was like crimpy curly. 10 out of 10. Loved that.
She's seeming a little, and Sarah Michelle Gellar is absolutely gorgeous, so it's not really her. She's just having like a little bit of like an ugly moment.
We all go through phases, you know?
And it's definitely like, it's the hair, and it's like looking a little greasy, and her makeup's like a little like, under her eyes, like mascara. Like she's having a moment. It's just like me. Not so long ago, I was having the ugly month. Remember, Jess? Because my eyebrows were too dark and my hair was too yellow, and I had like a tooth thing that I wasn't happy about. I understand. Sometimes we go through like the ugly moments, and she's like an ugly month.
Her hair to me looks like they've just done too much to it. And so it is like a little fried, a little flat, a little dead, a little sad. Yeah. And I think it's affecting her whole look. I was here for the crimpy curly hair in the very first scene.
Yeah, but then
the rest of the episode, it got bad.
Yeah. I mean, unless she's doing heatless curls, that's more heat to her hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck it up more.
I think they were like, you know what? Buffy's not the A-plot this week. We don't need to focus on her hair and makeup. Like, let's just take a step back.
Yeah, we're saving $850 this week, and we don't have to do Buffy's hair and makeup.
Yeah,
Sarah Michelle Gellar, get on it. Do it yourself today.
Yeah.
And then like she's like, I don't know how to do my makeup. So then she's like, Allison, how you doing, girl? And she like goes over to Allison Hannigan's dressing room. You want to do my makeup? And Allison Hannigan doesn't know how to do her makeup properly. So then she just like throws some shit onto Buffy's face and is like, perfect. Like also.
Yeah,
that's
she should have asked Charisma.
She should have asked Charisma, but
I would assume Charisma would know.
No, they dress Charisma like she's a 40-year-old realtor. Okay,
no,
like truly, they do.
Leave her alone.
Half the time, it's too much. It's way too much.
I bet Charisma Carpenter does her own makeup.
If she's in another pantsuit anytime soon, I will lose my mind.
Charisma. It's such a good name.
Is it?
I think for her, yeah.
Well, for an actor, certainly. Well, she got the charisma.
Yeah, for her, it's a great name. I bet she knows how to do her own makeup.
Oh, definitely. So then Xander approaches the table, right? And this is where we all kind of reconvene. And he was like, "Oh, it was a quiet night,
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
1 second. I know I'm not supposed to Google, but okay.
Why are you Googling?
I just want you to guess what, one guess about what Charisma Carpenter's mom did for a living. You will never guess.
Is she like a doctor? I can't tell if like you don't think I'm gonna guess or you do think I'm gonna guess.
No, you're not gonna guess.
Is she a realtor?
No. Her mom was or is a bird sanctuary worker, a bird specialist. Working
why
with birds.
Why are you reading this? Why do you know this? What are you looking at where this is the information you're seeing?
The Wikipedia.
You really shouldn't be looking at her Wikipedia.
She is from Las Vegas, Nevada.
I didn't even know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Well, I mean, not everybody's as knowledgeable as me, David.
She knows all the lore.
I know all the lore. Her dad was a salesman.
Okay. This is not pertinent information to anything.
Well, I was just interested in the birds. I love birds.
Do you? You love birds?
I do like birds. Yeah.
I do like flamingos.
Yeah, that's a bird.
Okay, but like, it doesn't mean you like all birds.
I like.
Do you like chickens?
No.
Oh, well,
I like
birds.
ducks though. Ducks are cute.
Ducks are cute. Okay, we've really gone off.
Yeah,
now.
I lived with a bird in college, and I don't like them after that.
I don't want one as a pet.
Yeah, no. I had a roommate who had menageries. He had snakes, birds, flying squirrel, Madagascar hissing cockroach.
You had to say snakes, David.
Yeah.
You know Sarah.
I don't know.
Weird about
I don't know if David knows that I love snakes.
I think he does.
I love snakes. What kind of snake was it? Was it a corn snake?
It was some variety of python. Like I remember we would, do the thing where you feed it, and then we would watch the mouse travel down.
Yuck. Yeah.
My hairstylist has a snake. Okay, go on.
Okay. So that's the end of the episode.
Oh, okay.
Did we miss anything? Is there anything that we haven't mentioned that either of you wanted to talk about?
I don't know, because I really just don't really care about the A plot this episode, except for that one scene with Buffy and Angel, which I thought that was very funny.
Is that really the A plot though, or is the A plot Xander? Because this is the backwards episode, and the B plot.
Right. So normally the A plot would be the Buffy, but in this time it's the B plot.
But I would say you're not necessarily supposed to care about the apocalypse because it's not going to happen. I mean, come on.
It might.
We got the B plot.
It's not the season finale.
Yeah.
The apocalypse isn't really happening. That happens in May.
Yeah, just like how Voldemort only comes around final season. He's like, no student on my watch will take a final.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, my first viewing, I didn't really like the episode. My second viewing, I think I appreciated it. And I will say this, doing this episode in this style, in this format is bold. And I appreciate shows that will take risks. So like, even if other people don't care for this episode or straight up hate it, I feel like we should appreciate the fact that a show is willing to take a risk and like do a really interesting structural thing on their show, because not all shows will be as bold. So I think like your mileage may vary, and I think multiple viewings really did make me appreciate the episode in a way I didn't on the first viewing, because it was like very whiplashy for me. Specifically, David, I know you mentioned earlier the music shifting so violently at times, like really had me like it was like all I could do to pay attention because it was like so all over the place. But I think after watching it one time, I was able to appreciate it more on my second watch.
Yeah, it's definitely an episode that rewards you for watching it more than once. And I agree with you. It takes a lot of confidence is the word I'll use to make an episode that is going to be such a departure from your normal structure, and to kind of expose a lot of things that are basically pretty ridiculous about your show. Like, I mean, I think it's brave, and there are people who don't like this episode specifically because they feel like it kind of ruins the show and because it points out how ridiculous some of the things are. But
it's camp. Like, we appreciate the campiness. So I don't.
But not everybody does.
Yeah.
Some people want to take their vampire slaying really, really seriously.
I did like how they were how I think in the Angel Buffy scene, which feels like the most like over the top moment of the episode, they're like, Angel's, I can't lose you again. And he's like, if I have to die, it's like, he's such a martyr. Like, good God, I'm over him. Like, come on, spin off already.
Yeah, but that's once again, that is why the show like made fun of itself, which is like very refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think that doing that is like the equivalent of I don't know, reducing the, like, if you think of like resentment or anger or not liking Buffy and Angel, do you think like basically pointing to it and showing that it's funny kind of is like letting out the pressure on that, like a release valve?
For
and
me,
so now you can okay.
I don't think it's gonna make me come around on them in any way.
No.
I don't think as a result when we go forward I'll be like, oh, I love them, I ship them so hard, but I do think it makes me I appreciate that the show realizes how ridiculous it is and is willing to point at itself and laugh. Like shows that make fun of themselves and don't take themselves too seriously, I always respect a little bit more. And it almost reminds me of like Community in a way. Like this episode feels this episode feels like they're like, okay, we're gonna take a quick little pit stop, do a funny little thing, and then next week is back to normal, whatever their normal looks like. And so people who love Angel, well, just go back to next week. I'm sure they'll be back to their schmoopiness and you'll be fine.
I actually thought about Community throughout this discussion as well, because I feel as though didn't like they have an episode where like they focus on like Star Burns and they're like, because he was like a side character. And they're, he was like, oh, we really hate all those people because they're like the main characters. And like it was like there was like this whole episode that like didn't we have that? Like a whole episode we didn't see because we're focusing on the side characters.
Yeah, there's a lot of jokes about like, oh, you all are like the heroes of your own story. I mean, they do it on Lost too. It's not uncommon, but I feel like it's not as effectively done always as it was on this show.
Yeah. But and part of why it was so much more effective here is because they have a character who is the side guy who is also a main guy in the form of Xander. And so yes, we're able to take the camera and point it to the side, but we still have one of our, 3 or 4 main characters who's the center of that. And we get to explore his Xander-ness in a way that highlights some of the things that are better about him, hopefully.
I don't like Xander-ness as like an adjective.
I mean, there are worse things, probably.
All right, well, let's jump into some feedback. We did get an email from Sophie saying, really looking forward to hearing what you thought about this episode, especially interested to see what Jess thought of this episode and if she could get over her Xander hate to enjoy the episode and appreciate it for what it is. It's an interesting episode and fairly controversial as well. There are a lot of people who love it and a lot of people who hate it. To have a Xander-centric episode like this is a choice, and even more of a choice to have all the end of the world stuff as a B plot and make it seem totally unimportant to the story. The first time watching, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. However, with subsequent viewings, my appreciation for it just grows and grows. I really love the kookiness and the melodrama of the side plots, especially the Bangel. It is how most of us feel normally, even without the over-the-top acting, I think. The end of the world stuff is also totally counted and is part of the Buffy world. That is 3 apocalypses they have beaten if you were keeping count.
I was not.
And Sophie says in parentheses, I know you're not. I know the problem a lot of people have with the episode is that they want to watch the Buffy side of things and not Xander. But once you get over it, it's really interesting and a different choice in storytelling. This is the first of a few different or experimental episodes Buffy has sprinkled throughout its run. The way the episode is structured is so original and so different to anything I had seen before, and I don't think I've seen since either. To make what would be the B storyline, the A storyline, and vice versa. So if it is at least for this, you guys can appreciate the episode. Feliz Navidad. Besos, Sophie.
Thank you, Sophie.
Yeah, I do totally agree. Like, I think it's an interesting episode. I feel like the people who are saying, I wish we would have seen the Buffy storyline, I feel like we've seen the Buffy story. Like, we've seen this storyline, this exact storyline. Yeah. So, like, what it would feel repetitive, David, like for them to do that as a story again.
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure if they wanted to do an episode about the Sister of Ja and their cannibalistic apocalypse cult, they would give them more detail and flesh them out more and make them better. But just based on what's presented here, I'm not really interested in an episode where they're the bad guys beyond what we get here,
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be what's it called? Like one-dimensional, because who cares? They're the B plot.
Yeah. I mean, they're not very compelling. I mean, and I don't think there's a lot that you could do to make them more compelling.
They're blue demons. They like to eat people. So what?
Mm-hmm.
All right. We also have a voicemail from Michael. So let's hear what Michael has to say.
Hey, Jess and Sarah, this is Michael again out in San Francisco, calling you from my Shure MV7 microphone. This is actually not what I used to call you last time. It was just a crappy Bluetooth headset. But listen, I am a musician and an audio engineer, so if you want to be my best friends, I think we're getting there. Just keep telling me that my audio sounds really good, even if it's not.
Your audio does sound incredible.
I wanted to call in, well, first, Sarah, congrats on getting hitched. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And also, I wanted to talk about our friend Kralik and the pills. It was so interesting to me that you were confused about the pills, and I have a theory about why. But first, the official explanation from the DVD commentaries is that he suffers from some poorly defined mental illness because it's the 90s and they didn't feel like they needed to actually define mental illnesses accurately.
Sounds right.
And his condition is somehow controlled or managed by the pills, which apparently are effective the instant he swallows them. So I think part of what's happening here is that it's a quarter century later. We have a much broader vocabulary in terms of how we talk about mental illness, and we expect popular culture to present it in a much more thoughtful way, which 90s shows unfortunately didn't do. It was all very shorthand. No one was really concerned about the specifics of any given mental illness or how medications might help to manage it. It was all just sort of, well, he's crazy, and then he takes the pills, and then he's not. So I think that's part of what's going on there. Talk amongst yourselves. It's a theory. Also wanted to say that actor, Jeffrey Kober, you are going to see him again. I'm not going to tell you when or how, but it's out there, and you have to keep your eyes peeled or you'll miss it, because I sure did on my first watch through. But that's coming up. And anyways, keep up the great work. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you, Michael. Very, very crisp.
His sound quality was really good. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, we're going to see this guy. You know what's funny is I don't know if I mentioned this on the last podcast, but like Kralik looked very familiar to me, and I thought it was just the actor, but I was also too nervous to Google, so I didn't.
No, that actor is very prolific in certain genre fiction. He's in Walking Dead. He's very famously in Walking Dead. Did you guys watch Walking Dead?
I've seen a good chunk of it. Was he in the early seasons?
He's the guy that Rick rips his throat out with his teeth when they're attacking his son, and he's the leader of the gang, and he's holding Rick, and Rick like spins around, like rips like
maybe I saw him in that then.
But he's like that. He shows up on shows and he's like the bad guy. He's like he has like a niche as like memorable bad guy who shows up in the background for a couple episodes and then gets killed.
Okay. Yeah, he had a very distinctive face for me. I don't know.
That's very distinctive face. I wasn't gonna mention that he comes back, but since it was already told to you, I'll just kind of tell you it's not this season. So don't be expecting him like in the next few weeks.
It's gonna revolve around the pills.
But the actor will return. He will not be playing Kralik. He'll be playing.
Oh, they love to do this because they did this with that other guy too.
But that guy, the judge, Brian Thompson. But he had Luke makeup on the first time, and then he was.
Yeah, it was Daddy Vamp's favorite, and then he also became that other guy.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Did the bartender that did he die, or he was just a little injured?
I thought he was just injured.
It is ambiguous.
Yeah, he was a little sad on the ground of his bar.
I went and looked at the script, and all it says is that the whole scene takes place while he's lying on the ground behind the bar, so we don't have to build the bar set. That's literally what the script says.
That's really funny.
Okay. All right.
I assume he's just injured. I think he'll be back because they love to use him as like a plot device.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we need information on vampires. We're going to the bar that the vampires go to.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. So I don't know.
He might be dead. Bye, Billy.
See you later.
I'll never remember your name ever again, but
does it really matter? Do we really care?
Real.
Not really.
I don't know. I don't care. I think that was a good point that Michael was making about the mental health. I think that like it's very I laughed at the fact that it's like, oh yes, I take pills instantly better. Like, don't we wish that was the case?
Truly, I so wish my SSRIs worked in that way where I could take them and like no. Unfortunately, the onboarding process and the offboarding process for any sort of like mental health pill usually is super unpleasant.
I do think that it helps with that apathy that you mentioned that I have earlier. I
feel numb to the world.
Maybe it's that like maybe it's just like too much Zoloft in my system, but yeah, it's definitely not like an instant band-aid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing that's always bugged me about that scene and about that whole idea that the pills, work on him is that he's a vampire now.
That's why, vampire. David, you heard me on the that is why I thought they had something to do with him being a vampire, because it seemed like he needed them for that. My biggest problem with the whole pill thing was that it felt integral to the story because it is how Buffy outsmarts him. Yeah. But anyway, we appreciate people letting us know because I was very confused by that.
And I've always kind of headcanoned it that they picked a guy who had that very specific weakness because they wanted, the test is not designed to kill the Slayer. It's designed to test the Slayer and see if they can figure out how to survive. And if
they die, whoopsies, we'll just find another.
Well, yeah, because they're disposable and we can just replace them. We don't have to pay them.
Yeah. They really need to form a union at this point.
Oh, yeah. Well, if there was more than one of them who was active at a time, they might be able to. But, they're just
Buffy and Faith forming a union.
Bunch of girls running around the world. One girl in all the world.
Sarah, do you want to know what next week's episode title is?
Yeah.
I'm excited for it because the title, I feel like, is exciting.
Okay.
Season 3, episode 14, Bad Girls.
Bad Girls, Bad Girls.
What you gonna do?
Can we please get like a Buffy and Faith team up episode? Like truly.
Yeah.
Like we got Faith this episode, but like literally most of what she was doing was like having sex with Xander. So
so without spoiling anything, you guys have talked about how Faith didn't show up for a long time and how that was probably because contractually she could only be in so many episodes.
Yeah.
So I would just say that she's probably missed enough episodes that she can be in almost as many as we have left in this season.
Yay, Elijah Dushkashu!
And on that note, this like I know y'all have talked about why do people think season 3 is close to season 2? Like when is it gonna get good? Like I've heard y'all say that, right? And so one of the things I wanted to tell y'all, yeah, I know, and that's fine. And Sarah, if you don't like it, that's great. Like, I mean, you're totally, I'm
still feeling that way. This episode did not move mountains for me, but go on.
But I wanted to kind of talk about that just a bit and unpack that. Now that y'all are, halfway through season 3, I thought just a little bit of discussion about like how these seasons are structured. And what they do, the beginning of each season is really like an epilogue to the previous season where they tie up all the loose ends and get the status quo back to where it's supposed to be, which is Buffy and the Scooby Gang hunt monsters. And then the actual story starts for that season where things start to happen. And I didn't really realize that it took this long for the actual story to start in the season. And you can argue that the story started when Faith showed up, but it's really going to kick into gear next week.
That's definitely I feel like that's the cycle of Buffy is they're like by 3/4 of the way through the season, they're like, now let's focus on our main storyline. Yeah. Enough with these monster of the week.
Yeah. And like, cause I watched the Zeppo again today, just to refresh my memory before I came on this. And then I was looking at like the episodes that are coming, just like the thumbnails of the rest of the season. I was like, oh wow. Yeah, no, it's coming. It's a ride. It's going to start I cannot wait until y'all get to the end of this season to see how you feel about it. Next week should be fun.
Bad girls time, Sarah.
I'm ready. I'm excited.
Yeah, so that'll be next week. I'm super pumped because it sounds like hopefully it's a good one. Probably
I like it.
Xander-centric, which
I like it.
It is definitely less Xander-centric.
Yeah.
In fact, I can't think of anything he does in it that's really notable or memorable.
Because he's not a bad girl.
No, he's not. Definitely.
He could never be. Anything else, David? Anything else we haven't talked about that you wanted to chat about? Anything to plug? Anything like that?
No, I don't really have anything to plug. I mean, I don't really do anything exciting in my real life. So what am I going to plug? Thank you for having me. It's been a joy. I love this really is like my favorite episode. And so it was fun to talk about it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Sarah, what about you? What you got going on?
No, nothing.
No. What do you have going on? No.
I started watching Toys today.
Oh, did you? I haven't started it yet.
I have a new favorite song. It's called Happy Workers. So I'm really excited to talk about Happy Workers. So I don't know when we're going to release Toys, but it's going to be eventually. And then we covered While You're Sleeping with Sandra Bullock. And that was a nice little rom-com. And besides that, I'm just like going to be enjoying my Christmas fantasy. I got a question on Insta if we are taking any breaks due to Christmas and New Year's. And my answer to you is no, baby girl. You got us full time. We're not taking one break. Fuck it all.
We work so hard
because we're happy workers. Just
happy workers.
Just like that song, happy worker time.
Yes. No, we'll be here through the holidays. So buckle up, baby, because we got more podcasts coming at you. Of course, if you want to leave us a rating and review, we always appreciate it. I will read it on the podcast. So make sure you do that on iTunes. You could also send us in feedback because we love reading your feedback. It's been so fun. I feel like more people have been engaging, which I always appreciate. So shit90spod.com, shit90spod@gmail.com. If you want to send us in any of your thoughts and feelings, any of that stuff. Hopefully I've satisfied Xander lovers out there today. I feel like I was very fair to him and I put aside my hatred.
I thought you did great on that front.
Thank you so much. It was hard at the beginning. You should have seen me watching the episode live for the first time. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. If this is a dream, I'm going to lose my mind.
I bet. Yeah.
So anyway, we'll be back next week with season 3, episode 14, Bad Girls. We're going to be a couple of bad girls chatting about it. I can't wait. So we'll be back next time. And until then, here endeth the lesson.
Just ask. Shit 90 Shows Taught Me.
Shit 90 Shows Taught Me was not filmed before a live studio audience.